Hello everyone, welcome to SharePoint Power Hour. I'm Laura Rogers and we have Joelle Farley here. Jobson. I'm still calling you by your maiden name. Jobson here on audio. And hopefully you all can hear her. I always end up testing that every single week when we do this.
Hey guys.
You never know with the audio and video what's going to go wrong. But anyway, I'm Laura Rogers and I'm SharePoint MVP, and this is SharePoint Power Hour. This is where we demo things. Sometimes we plan them, sometimes we make them up as we go on all things SharePoint, SharePoint Online, Office 365, pretty much out of the box functionality, things that you don't necessarily have to be able to write code or do anything super technical. So this is mostly geared towards business users and sort of power users and that kind of audience. And we also have a Slack channel. So it's iwmentor.slack.com. And in the description of this video on YouTube, there's a form to fill out to join the Slack, to request to join the Slack channel if you've never joined it. And this is where, that's the fun of having it live, is that we're chatting throughout and asking questions and having a conversation. So today's demo is going to be incoming email. Now, SharePoint on premises, of course, has a functionality for incoming email where you can basically set up incoming email at the server side so that Exchange and SharePoint are talking to each other. And once you have that set up, then all of your, it's, several things you have to do in Exchange and central administration, but all of your libraries will have a option in the library settings to be able to receive incoming email. And you can even type what you want the email address to be. So SharePoint Online, though, doesn't have that exact same thing. So people have kind of, figured out different ways or just different kind of hacks, and there are third-party products and things like that. So there is a way in Microsoft Teams to create give your channel an incoming email address just inside of a team, but it doesn't let you say what you want the email address to be. It just gives you this big, long, ugly, cryptic thing. So I wrote a blog post. I posted the link to it in the chat window in here. It was just basically, it's just called incoming email in SharePoint Online, and just basically describing how to turn on that setting in Teams. So the goal for this power hour is to have a nice, pretty email address, resumes@iwmentor.com, and have it basically put the actual resumes, the files that get sent in a library called resumes, and have it, it seems pretty simple, but again, that was the challenge that I had this week when I was doing something similar for a customer. So I'll go ahead and get started and share my screen. Okay, so first of all, we have Exchange. So let's go to the Office Admin Center. So I clicked groups, shared mailboxes, and created this shared mailbox called resumes@iwmentor.com. Don't try and send an email to it because I locked it down, just because this is a live demo. I locked it down so only I can send emails to it. Yeah. So it's resumes@iwmentor.com, and it's a shared mailbox. So then in the shared mailbox settings, though, you can basically say who's allowed to do send as. So I actually went, since I'm an old school Exchange admin, I actually went straight to Exchange. And this interface is not as lovely as the Office 365 admin. And I went to shared here. And then there's resumes. And and then what I did was I put my name, I put me in the send as, because when in this solution, I'm going to create a Microsoft flow to send whatever arrives in this mailbox to basically to this to SharePoint. So I'll show you how that works in a minute. But so what you're probably thinking is, couldn't you just use forwarding in here? So it didn't work that way. Let me just close this real quick and show you what I did in Teams, though. So in Teams, I have just a I went into Teams and created a new team. It's called Modern Team Test. And then I clicked here and clicked to add a channel. And I added a channel called Demo Incoming Email. Now, incoming mail. So once you do that, it takes a minute. So you're not going to instantaneously see this email address thing. So you have to wait a few minutes for this email address thing to appear. So don't let that throw you off. But then it'll say get email address. So this is the email address. That's pretty ugly, right? So we don't necessarily want, there we go, IW Mentor, there. We don't necessarily want people to have to send their resumes in. We don't want them to give them this big ugly thing, like this all big cryptic thing. You can't edit it. You can just see that this is what your email address is. This is what it gives you. So you'd want to be able to give them the nice, pretty resumes email address, right? So what I did was, you would think that you could take this email address and go in here, and it's got a forwarding feature. So you'd think that you'd just be able to forward it straight from Exchange to that, but it doesn't let you pick that address. It doesn't let you use that address to forward to, because it's actually not an IW Mentor address. If you notice, it's got that at amer.teams.ms or whatever. So that's not anyway, so Exchange is not going to forward to that. So that's what we're going to use Flow for. So I'm going to take this address and copy it. And then let's go over to Microsoft Flow. I'll go create from blank. And what I want to do is I'll go search. First, I'm going to call this incoming resumes. And it's not just when an email arrives. It's when a new email arrives in a shared mailbox. That's the action we need to use. So then when we use that action, that's where you can start typing, and you can see that it recognizes that in my domain. So what folder, so you can actually get very specific. So you could have, specific folders in your mailbox for certain jobs or something, and I don't know, and you could even have Outlook rules in that shared mailbox to put things in certain folders according to the subject or something like that. You could use a combination of different like logic technologies to accomplish various things that you could do with the resumes, and different resumes for different things. So you can also get very specific here as to just getting very narrow it down to only be from certain people or to certain people. I'm going to say has attachment, yes, because if something doesn't have an attachment, basically they're supposed to be sending in their resumes. And so if they don't have an actual resume attachment, then we're not going to put that in a library. So that's just something, you don't have to change it to yes, but that's just something I did here. So then I'm going to, let's see, do a new step, and that one is going to be to forward. So I'll go Office 365 Outlook, forward, and then forward an email. So again, Exchange wouldn't let me forward it just straight from just the email settings. So which message do I want to forward? I want to get the message ID, which is, and see more. See, they hid it. This also took me a few minutes too, it's hidden. So I click see more, and then I can get the message ID. So that's an interesting little weird thing. Okay, so now I've got to take this email address that from the team that I just copied, and I'm just gonna get rid of all this stuff at the front and just get only the email address and create flow. I think I click create flow. There we go. Now I'll test this and just make sure that the email arrives. So I'm gonna go to resumes. I'm just sending an email real quick, and I'm going to attach like some kind of test file here. Hold on. Demo content. There we go. Test 1. All right, so this is my email that I'm sending, and I'm going to send that, and it should arrive in that shared mailbox. Let me go back to the flow here. Oh, flow run failed. Okay, let's go see. Not found. What did it not find? Maybe I didn't paste that thing correctly. Let me go try that again. Because I started chopping things off of it. Maybe I messed it up. Let me double check. F44, blah, blah. I'm just going to copy the whole thing and put it in Notepad. Copy. And I lost my cursor. There it goes. And then that looks the same. Now, when we change a flow, when we like get an error and we have to edit it and go do something again, then we can actually go, it didn't run yet. Oh wait, that's weird. It had an error, but then it didn't actually run. I'm not sure then. That's weird. Okay, I'm just going to go ahead and click update. Now, that's another thing, and we've talked about this before in Power Hour. With Flow, you actually are going to have timing issues sometimes when you're editing, creating a flow or editing it, and then immediately when you edit it, going and trying and triggering it or running it, and there's actually a delay. So I'm going to go ahead and send another email, but I'm going to just wait a minute, basically, and give it a minute to make sure that whatever timing issue that it has is going to just it sets in. So actually, let me go do that. That's also why I went ahead and created that shared mailbox ahead of time. Before I started the demo, I created that shared mailbox in Office 365, because when you create a shared mailbox, I created it probably like 20 minutes ago, you're going to have to wait for it to kind of propagate across your domain. So that's why I'd done that ahead of time. And also another timing issue is this also had to be, this little channel had to be created ahead of time, because like I said, it's not going to immediately have the email address when you create it. So I'm going to do test 2. And then it's actually, so what it's going to do is it's going to arrive in the shared mailbox. And then when it arrives in the shared mailbox, it's going to forward it over to the Teams thing. Now, we're not really necessarily using Teams for Teams. We're using it just for that whole incoming email purpose. So what it does is it creates, puts it in this folder. So let's go back over there to Flow and refresh this. Let's see. And again, it might be a timing issue where we just have to wait for it to run. Pull this over here. And so again, I'm just going to wait a minute and just talk through some other things while I'm waiting to see. I didn't want to do too much of it ahead of time because I wanted you to see me build it, but then you got to wait for the flow to, yeah, it's awkward. Okay, any questions? You guys, oh yeah, I saw that. Upload files from Power Apps to SQL Server. That's pretty nice to know. Let's see. Yeah, I was looking at that. I was looking for that Power Apps attachments thing actually last night. I was trying to see if I could get that to work, like if it existed yet. And because I wanted to do, you know, I wanted to do a demo of the new Power Apps, the ability to actually use the attachments functionality. That would be huge. But I didn't see it. I didn't see it in there yet. But I was thinking about if it had been in there, I would have done Power Hour about that. Let's see. No runs. So there's actually a second workflow. I kind of wanted to just test this one to just see if it works, but I'll go ahead and get into the second workflow because this is the part that was really tricky, because this first one is pretty simple. It just forwards an email, right? There's not much to it. I'm going to send one more. I'm going to send one more. Let's see. Dun, dun, dun. Just different files. Okay, so the next flow is the one that was tricky. So what I want to do is I want to have a library just for resumes. So I need to go into SharePoint. I need to go into this team itself. So this modern team test is a SharePoint site inherently. So I want to go to this site. I'll go ahead and navigate to it. Let me see what my URL is. See, it says open in SharePoint, and that's site slash, okay. So I've got the URL, and I'll go over there. Oops, let's see. Something like that. I think that's what it was. Ah, I lost it. CSWP test. Okay. CSWP test. All right, so I want to create a library here. So I'll just do new document library and I'll call it resumes. Because when it arrives in Teams, it's just going to arrive inside of that little Teams, that folder. So, and you guys probably know this or probably remember this from when we've talked about Teams before, done Teams demos, is that when you create channels in Teams, it automatically creates just in this default documents library in the SharePoint site, it creates folders and it creates a folder for each team. So that is where, this is where that mail is going to come in. Let me see. Let me go double check my, let's see, forward an email. Okay. Yeah, I just have to wait for it to work. And if it doesn't work, I still am going to be able to show you this second workflow. Because the second workflow is just moving, it's just moving a file from one library to another. And you would think that that would be pretty simple. And hopefully maybe somebody here will correct me if I'm wrong, but it was way more complicated than it should have been. So this next workflow is just moving a file from one library to another. Simple, right? Not really. Okay. So let's go to the flow. So this could be, so this concept of just moving a file from one library to another, the cool thing about it being in Office 365 and SharePoint is that you could be moving a file from one library to another, not only in the same site, but it could be from site to site. It could be from, you know, different environments. It could be different site collections. It doesn't matter. It doesn't. So with SharePoint Designer workflows, it has to be in the same site, but this one can be, it could go across sites. So I'm going to create, I'm going to say move to resumes library. And then I'm going to use a SharePoint. So basically when a file is created, not an item, that's going to be for a list, but when a file is created, I want to move the file. And I'll just say in a folder. There are different ones. It's kind of confusing the way it says when a file is created or modified in a folder, created or modified properties only, and all this weird stuff. So let me go back to here. I'm looking at my reference one, the one that I did for a customer, the one that actually worked. So when a file is created. Okay, so we'll gotta go to the right site. So for this one, we need to have that little WCS, whatever that demo is here, and put it here. enter custom value and just paste it. That way you don't have to wait and pick and look for the list of sites. And then within that site, then it's going to give me my list of my libraries to pick from. So when a file is created in, and I'm going to go to share. Now, the document library is called Documents. That's the visual display name of it. But when it was first created, it was called Share Documents. So that's why it says Share Documents here. So the names of these are not going to be the same as what you'd expect them to be. So when a file is created in a folder, and there are not many advanced options for that. And basically I want to copy the file. So and I'll show you kind of the challenge that I had with this. SharePoint, copy. So where do I want to move it from and move it to? So that's, how's it coming? Any questions or conversation about any of this? It's kind of boring. It's kind of like one of those things that you've just always been able to do in SharePoint. It's just kind of different in Office 365. So let's see, source, path to the source file. And this is where I need to know the actual file. The file, like the full path to that exact file. So let's go to file path. And then destination file is going to be, I have to have the path to that other library. So, and if it's in another site, you'd have to put, that full URL. So /resume/ and then I need to know the name of the file. So file name. I'm going to show you kind of the challenge that I came across with that. And then do I want to overwrite it if it already exists? Sure, I've got versioning. All right. Now, since I'm still waiting for that other one to run, it hasn't necessarily run yet. I'll go check, but yeah, see, it hasn't run yet. I'm just going to go ahead and put a file in this folder just to mock that up. All right, I'll just do a new Word document. And this should trigger that flow that I just created. I'm so creative. This is a test. All right. And then it's going to be called test1. Okay, so now I have a new file. And I'll go back to my library. So test1 should have triggered that second flow. No. Again, okay, this is probably another timing issue where I just created the flow and I have to wait now for it to function. I wish I could see, I have the customer one right here that actually works, and I wish I could just show you that one. So the challenge that I came across is that when I move the file over, so notice that it's got, let's go look at this thing right here. When I copy the file, see it says destination file path. It has, the library and then file name, but it doesn't have the file extension. The file name, for some reason right here, doesn't include that it's a .docx or .xl or whatever it is. The extension isn't part, it isn't a piece of metadata, and it isn't part of the file name. Isn't that weird? Has anybody else come across that? Oh, thanks, Philip. All right, see the update for the attachments by tomorrow. Nice. No, there's no news about printing Power Apps. Don't print things. Okay, I'm gonna go try sending to that thing one more time. Joelle, have you, what kind of solutions have you had to do where you had to do incoming email, like over the years? Resumes is a good one. Subpoenas is another one that I've had to do.
Yeah, I've also seen it where people will, like, and this is probably not as common now, but back in the day when they didn't want people to like have to get into SharePoint, they would have them like email stuff to libraries using an email address.
Yep.
You know, just like in HR and stuff like that. I've seen those kind of things used for that reason.
Oh, yeah. Because you don't want to even give them read access or anything
Right.
like that to the library or contribute. You don't want them going there at all.
Right.
You
Exactly.
just want them sending stuff to it. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Or you want to just keep it simple because
Yeah.
emailing something, like, think about like your audience, right? If you have a bunch of people that are of different generations or especially that it's complicated for them to have to go remember a login and go click on SharePoint, or especially, or if
Go
they're
find the
an external
library.
person, what?
And then find the library to put it
Yeah,
in and
yeah.
upload it
Or if they're an
correctly.
external person and you don't want them, they don't have access to SharePoint at all. So,
Yep.
yeah. Let's see. Incoming resumes. Let's see if that one's run yet. No. That's frustrating. Okay, I'm gonna see if that whole timing thing makes it really difficult for demos. So for the customer one that I was doing the other day, I just created it and then sat here and like did something else for like 15 minutes and then went back and then it worked. And yeah. So what I had to do though is, let me show you a few extra things that I did in this one where it's moving it, because that was the challenge and that was the big thing that I wanted to demo, was the fact that it doesn't have a file extension. So the email, the way it is right now, is it's just going to arrive with just, it's going to get moved to that other library just as this file that you can't open because it doesn't have a dot like anything extension on it. So here's the solution that I came up with. I did a compose because I want to get the file extension out of there. I want to be able to see what get that little dot something, extract it out and be able to use that. So to compose. So this is like a variable. It's one way of doing variables. And then basically this file, let's see, file identifier is a big long string that has the full file name in it. It has the whole path and it has just a bunch of, it's a big long ugly string. But it doesn't just have the file name with the extension, it just has this a whole bunch of stuff, right? So it's a big long ugly string, so I want to extract the file extension out of that string. So let's go, so I did a substring. Let me go copy this to Notepad for myself. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to find the last index. I'm going to find the dot, like .docx or whatever it is. And last index of is an expression that we can use that's going to find the last time that you find the dot in that big long string. So do the last index of that dot, and then I do a substring. So go find the index substring of that location. So then you got to put all that together into one big formula. So it is, so I'll do substring. So when you do these, it's not as lovely as Power Apps, where Power Apps gives you the little parentheses and shows you exactly where everything needs to go. It kind of does that, but it's not as verbose. So I need a substring of what? I need a substring of, and I can go back over here to my dynamic content, and I have my identifier, like that. That one doesn't look the same as what my other one did. I really need this to run. I wish I could show you what it looks like when it runs. Let me try and create one more file in here. I'm just going to upload one and get it to trigger, because once it triggers, then we'll be able to see, like visually see the values of some of these things in here. So let me get rid of this. All right. Because so that's one of the good things about Flow is when it runs, oh look, it succeeded, cool. When it runs, it gives you all this information. See, it took a minute, but it gives you all this information. So when a file's created in a folder and it shows me the outfit, so it shows me all of what, so this is the file content, this is the file identifier, the thing I was talking about with the dot. See, it's got the whole path to it. It doesn't have just the file name. But this is the part that I was wanting to extract. And then it's got the file name, file path, file entity tag, file. So you'll notice that none of these, the file name doesn't have a, just file name.docx or whatever it is. It's just this big ugly thing. So let's do it. Let me show you another one, because I think this particular file name looks weird like that because I created it directly in the library, and it might have actually triggered before I had given it that nice name. So let me go back over to my library and just do one more file, but we're going to go ahead and move on. So I'll do upload, and I'll go to my demo contents. And I'm just uploading financial regulations. So this should trigger the Flow too. So let's go back over to Flow and refresh this. Another thing you can do is if a flow has run and succeeded or failed or whatever it did, and you want to, you tweak something in the flow itself, in the settings, and you want to just run it again, that's what you can't do that in SharePoint Designer, but you can do that in Flow. You can actually click on here and you can click resubmit. So that will take any changes you make to the flow itself, and it will just run the flow again with those new changes. So that's really nice. Okay, so I've got that file identifier. So let me go. Let's go look at what it did though, because it did successfully copy the file, but so I want to go look at it, and oh, it actually did it that time. Did it actually work? Oh, that's so frustrating. Okay, let's go look. Let's see. Well, it's not frustrating that it actually worked. I mean, that's kind of nice that it worked, but it didn't work when I was doing it before. All right. Resumes. Okay, so they actually arrived in there. Yeah, I'm not sure why it didn't work the other day then. That's awesome. All right, so the whole solution, let's go ahead and recap, is things are going to arrive in here, and you have a big, long, ugly, cryptic email address. And you don't want to have to give people that email address when they send you resumes. You just want to give them a nice resumes email, simple one. So in order to get things to go straight to here, you set up a flow that will forward things straight from a shared mailbox to that address. And then once it arrives here, it's going to arrive like in this folder. See, demo incoming email. It's going to arrive in here, and then once it arrives there, then the way it arrives is it's got this .eml extension. So I don't want to, it's got the .eml extension, and it's also got all like one or more attachments that it might have, but I don't want to take the email itself. I mean, you might, it depends on your requirements, but I don't want to take the email itself and move it to the resumes library. I'm just going to leave the email one where it is and move everything else to the resumes library, just the files. So that's another thing that I do in the flow. So go look at the flow. I've got too many windows open. Okay, let's go edit the flow. Go back to here. That one still hasn't run. Maybe, again, maybe that's a timing thing where I had just created the mailbox and it wasn't functioning yet. I'm going to try sending one. You know what? I'm going to try emailing one just straight to that address. I'm going to take this. Copy. Okay. Just because I want you to see what they look like when they arrive. Okay. See how long that takes. All right, now that should be arriving in here any minute. Okay. So what I want to do is when it arrives, it's going to have an EML extension of the email itself, like the body of the email, like if you want to read those. And if you recall back in, SharePoint on premises, when they arrive in the document library settings, you actually have options to create folders per sender. Like each sender would get its own folder in the library automatically. Or you could create folders per, I think it's subject. So that is actually an option that exists in SharePoint on premises, but this one is it. But with that file, it actually also doesn't contain the .eml, the email itself. So it depends on. Oh, you know what? That's what I did. I think I put a setting on there. That's what it was. That's what it was. I put a setting. See? Only email sent from these domains. Yeah, it's not. That makes sense. Okay. I was restricting it too much. Okay, I'm going to send that again. And forward. I was trying to restrict it too much, and probably when you're testing things or trying something for the first time, you should not have them as restrictive. And then after you see that it's working, that's just general troubleshooting, right? After you see that it's working, then you can make it more restrictive. All right, and go. Dun, dun, dun. All right, that's gonna, oh, look how fast that was. Test incoming email, and then arrives, and I'm gonna go ahead and do another one to, like the one that I was trying to send before, and resend that. Okay, so it should have a couple of them come in probably. Okay, incoming resumes. That's going to run in a second, and then it moves them. All right, so it didn't move it yet, the new one that I sent, but it's because we have to wait. The next thing that I was going to show you is we don't want the email body. So I'm going to go get that the extension of the file, and dun, dun, dun. Condition, file name, does not contain EML. You can do that. And then if yes, then copy the file. It does not contain EML. Got to drop it in there. There we go. All right. So that's basically the whole solution, is that it comes in, and then just the files themselves are what go to the resumes library. Do you have any questions? Let's see. Oh yeah, no, pretty boring subject, huh? Let's see, let me go back to my face here. So it was just a couple of little weird troubleshooting things that I had to do, especially with the file extension and with getting it to have, a nice email address going to the ugly Teams email address. And then it was just more moving parts than you would think for just to have a nice email address and things arrive at it. But that's about it. So I think we're going to do more patching next week on Power Hour. And our class is going to be the week, Power Apps class is going to be the week of March 19th. Thanks everybody for coming.